Achaksha atma vagamotrayavam Nava patantyatma samam patatrina Tata samam Vishnu gatim vipashita Aham prishtoryam mano Aham hi prishtoryam mano bhavadbir Achaksha atma vagamotrayavam Nabha patantyatma samam patatrina Tata samam Vishnu gatim vipashchita Aham hi prishtoryam mano bhavadbir Achaksha atma vagamotrayavan Nabha patantyatma samam patatrina Tata samam Vishnu gatim vipashchita Anyone wants to recite? Welcome.
Aham piprishtoryamano bhavadbir
Aham piprishtoryamano bhavadbir
Achaksha atma vagamotrayavan
Achaksha atma vagamotrayavan
Nabha patantyatma samam patatrinas
Nabha patantyatma samam patatrinas
Tata samam Vishnu gatim tapasyata
Tata samam Vishnu gatim vipashtita
Aham piprishtoryamano bhavadbir
Aham piprishtoryamano bhavadbir
Achaksha atma vagamotrayavan
Achaksha atma vagamotrayavan
Nava patantyatma samam patatrinas
Nabha patantyatma samam patatrinas
Tata samam Vishnu gatim vipashtita
Tata samam
Vishnu gatim vipashtita Aham, my humble self,
my humble self,
he, certainly,
certainly,
Prishta,
Krishna,
asked by you, Aryamana, as powerful as the sun,
as powerful as the sun,
Bhavadvi,
Bhavadvi,
by you, Achakshe, may describe, Atma, Atma Abhagama, as far as my knowledge is concerned, Atra, herein, Yavan, so far, Nabha, sky, Patanti, fly, Atma, Atma Samam, as far as it can, Patatrinaha, birds, Tata, thus, Samam, similarly, Vishnu Gatim, knowledge of Vishnu, Vipashchita, even though learned. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. O Rishis, who are as powerfully pure as the sun, I shall try to describe to you the transcendental pastimes of Vishnu as far as my knowledge is concerned. As the birds fly in the sky as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. Purport: the Supreme Absolute Truth is unlimited. No living being can know about the unlimited by his limited capacity. The Lord is impersonal, personal, and localized. By his impersonal feature, he is all-pervading Brahman. By his localized feature, he is present in everyone's heart as the Supreme Soul. And by his ultimate personal feature, he is the object of transcendental loving service by his fortunate associates, the pure devotees. The pastimes of the Lord in different features can only be estimated partly by the great learned devotees. So Srila Sutta Goswami has rightly taken this position in describing the pastimes of the Lord as far as he is realized. Factually, only the Lord himself can describe himself, and his learned devotee also can describe him as far as the Lord gives him the power of description. Om Agyana Timanandasya Gnanana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmei Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you so much for joining in person and online. Please accept my humble obeisances. So, beg the blessing and permission from His Grace Vijay Prabhu and you all as well. Chapter title: Maharaj Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. Sutta Goswami is speaking to the sages at Naimisharanya for the benefit of all humanity. Translation once again: O rishis, who are as powerfully pure as the sun, I shall try to describe to you the transcendental pastimes of Vishnu as far as my knowledge is concerned. As the birds fly in the sky as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. I'm going to highlight faith and semblances of faith based on this, and then the capacity within these two subjects. Prabhupada would say Adau Shraddha. He said that actually everything begins with faith. And sometimes he would give the example of an airplane pilot, that we have faith in the pilot is there and they're qualified to maneuver this aircraft in a safe and timely way. Otherwise, one would not board. And that's axiomatic. We don't go and check in the cabin and say, what's your name, where are you from, and where'd you study, and all this, and are you sober? We just simply expect that they're there and that they're going to be able to fly us to our desired destination. That in the same way, the prerequisite actually to start to understand the supreme absolute truth is faith, or shraddha. His Grace Vashishka Maharaj just breaks it down etymologically. Da, where one places, means to place something, and Shrad means the heart. So everyone's placing their heart in one place or the other. Srila Prabhupada recommends to place our heart in Krishna, at least in theory first. This is Adau Shraddha. And Prabhupada gives example also that as everyone is operating on this faith-based system in the world, it's the expectation of some desired result is there. We contemplate, okay, I might take the vehicle to the temple here, and I have faith that the vehicle is going to start and everything function. The faith is a requirement, especially in axiomatic faith. Axioma means Latin, Greek, etymologically, and it means here that which is worthy or fit. So Krishna notices that we're, at least in theory, thinking that he's worthy or fit to place our faith in. And that's a prerequisite. I'll just briefly mention Abbas, and then we'll come back to it. Abbas means the reflection or the shadow of faith. And I'll just give an overview of these two. There's reflective and shadowy, and this is mentioned, I'll just briefly come to it, in this transcendental literature, Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, by His Holiness Shivaram Swami. And he states the two technical words here are pratibimba and chaya. And Abbas means semblance. Semblance means it looks like it, but it's not really it. Whatever we're describing. In this case, we're describing faith, Shraddha. And here's one, just to give a little bit more. Srila Prabhupada translates Abbas variously as hint, tinge, shadow, semblance, dim reflection, and a little light. And throughout this book, semblance will be used, specifically pratibimba and chaya as reflective and shadowy. Now, Adao Shraddha, that's the beginning. And then according to the realization, as this purport states, their capacity. So let's make it relevant and go to Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 11, if you want to follow along. Vadanti tat tat avidas tatvam yagyan advayam pametmi paramatmiti bhagavaniti shabite. Impersonal, all-pervading, and personal. These are the three stages of realization according to one's capacity, and then of course there are levels to that. Let's highlight a few things in this purport now. The absolute truth is both subject and object, and there is no qualitative difference there. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are qualitatively one and the same. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of the Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hiranyagarbhas or yogis, and as Bhagavan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead, is the last word of the absolute truth. Prabhupada goes on to explain that it's just different perspectives on the same subject. And sometimes it's given as an example that if one is standing at a very distant place and their vision is set on a mountain, then they'll see just vaguely colors and shapes perhaps, and so forth. That is, one maybe gets halfway to that previous distance, then they start to make out more detail. This is more so likened to the all-pervading feature or Paramatma feature of the Lord. And then one actually, as one is on the mountain, in the mountain, then they can see more detail, shapes, colors, and different things of that sort. And this is likened to Bhagavan. Now, in the first canto, first chapter, first verse, it states about this realization. Sutta Goswami is speaking about to the sages in Naimisharanya, that the Supreme Absolute Truth is Svaina, self-sufficient, and Sada, always. We may be self-sufficient sometimes. In cooking, I can cook, or whatever it may be. But the Lord is Sada, always. And Kuhakam, illusion, Nirasta, it's absent from him. And therefore he's Satyam Param, he's the absolute truth, and Dhimahi, worthy of meditating upon. And to that person, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, let me offer my humble obeisances. Because now the faith is there. And now what knowledge? Knowledge 101 states in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text 3, Kshetra and Kshetragya, as basically the first understanding. Oh, I'm not this body. And then further one realized, oh, I'm not this mind. And oh, I'm not this intelligence. On Wednesday, I was at this Santa Cruz farmer's market, and one gentleman, he said he practices yoga, asanas, and he said it actually loosens my attachment to my body and my mind. So he's understanding the deeper principle of practicing. In general, the average person just uses it to become more fit, or to perhaps say that they practice this. But the idea is to first know that I'm not the body. I'm separate from the body. Now, how does it work? Understanding these things. Krishna it's stated about him he has three principal energies, although it's originally one, spiritual, just as this lights are powered by electrical energy, and this stove is also powered by electrical energy, but the functions are different. That similarly, Krishna has one supreme spiritual energy. However, it can manifest itself in variegated ways according to how the individuals want to utilize that energy. It states here that there's Bahiranga. Bahir means outside. Antaranga means inside. And then Tatastha, or marginal. Marginal, as His Grace Vashishka Maharaj says it, the individuals are open for suggestion. Right? For example, he would further state that if you go to the grocery store hungry, then you're open to very many suggestions. I used to do some sporting that required weight management. And when I'd go to the grocery store and get so many things and eat maybe a quarter of it in due course of time. But the idea is that if one is on the tatastha level due to, Prabhupada uses this word hovering on the bodily, mental, or even intellectual plane, that one will be this tatastha. They'll be on this marginal potency, which then renders them open to suggestion, which can be influenced either by one's culture, their family, or someone with a lot of conviction in their own faith. This is what His Holiness Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj stated, that these three types of faith can develop in these specific conditions. By simple culture, by someone peer pressuring them, so to say, and then by their own honest, impartial search for the truth absolute. More or less, that's how I'm here now with you all, you great souls, is deep confusion led me to want to understand more without my apostolic Christian background pressing me into thinking a certain way. Now, Krishna states specifically in the 10th chapter how he's giving the intelligence to understand. He says, Te sham satatiyu tanam bhajatam pritipuvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. He says, dadami buddhi yogam tam, intelligence of the yoga connection, dadami he personally gives. Now, a few things in the purport. Buddhi yoga itself is action in Krishna consciousness. That is the highest intelligence, Prabhupada states here. Buddhi means intelligence, and yoga means mystic activities or mystic elevation. When one tries to get back home or go back home, back to Godhead, and takes fully to Krishna consciousness in devotional service, his action is called Buddhi yoga. In other words, Buddhi yoga is the process by which one gets out of the entanglement of this material world. Birth, death, old age, disease. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. Now, how exactly does he do it? Give the intelligence. He states that in the next verse. He says, to show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. Prabhupada goes on to state a little bit more about Lord Chaitanya, and sometimes the devotees being criticized of being in the darkness of ignorance because of sentiment. Naive means innocent. However, Prabhupada has sometimes stated that Bhakti yoga is a standalone yoga, actually. If we analyze karma, jnana, or dhyan yoga, they all have the sense of devotion within it, or dedication. One has to be dedicated, otherwise it's not possible to advance. Now, let's focus a little bit on the classes of devotees according to the faith. This is found in the 12th verse of the first canto, second chapter, 1, 2:12, Prabhupada clearly delineates the different levels of devotees. And he says, your knowledge and detachment, this is what helps one advance. So I'll briefly state a few things here. The first-class transcendentalists are the devotees who have realized the Supreme Person. The second-class transcendentalists are those who have partially realized the plenary portion of the Absolute Person. And the third-class transcendentalists are those who have barely realized the spiritual focus of the Absolute Person. For those that distribute books regularly and perhaps get into conversations with anyone that follows the Bible, they'll tell you that usually that Jesus is God. At the same time, you ask them to describe God, but they can't tell you much about it. So it's a little counterintuitive. But here, it means Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and corollary supplementary literatures. We find a great deal of detail about God. I remember His Grace Vijay Prabhu said that he once asked someone to tell me, describe God from the Bible, and he said, God has fiery eyes. He said, that's not beautiful. And sometimes I'll ask them respectfully, whoever I'm talking to, describe something about God, or if He walked by, how are you going to recognize Him? They don't say anything. Actually, they don't really have an answer. And the idea is just to highlight, if we're having a conversation about the truth absolute, then these books that we study holds more value, more strength. And also what to speak of predating the other major world religions, such as the Islamic religion or the Christian Catholic religion. And Prabhupada also himself delineates really very clearly what it means to practice religion. He says 3 things: know God, love God, serve God. A simple definition. Now, if one's practice is enhancing these 3 things, then he says, Jyoti Gama, keep going towards the light. Prabhupada further said that this Krishna consciousness movement is not about conversion, but it's about purification. In other words, to have a more mature understanding about Krishna or the common God in such a way that it makes that person, as Srila Prabhupada said, a first-class gentleman. He asked him, how do we recognize the devotee of Krishna? He said he would be a first-class gentleman. What does that mean? Perfectly behaved. Perfectly behaved. Not as sometimes the word is brat use. It means spoiled or ill-mannered. But one actually becomes a gentleman, meek and humble in nature. Now, let's do a little bit of just a few minutes, and then I'll open it up for any reflections. You can hear it back from you all more. Quoting more from His Holiness Shivaram Swami. He quotes here from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 19, text 158. Sometimes unwanted creepers, such as the creepers of desires for material enjoyment and liberation from the material world, grow along with the creeper of devotional service. The varieties of such unwanted creepers are unlimited. I have experience of this unlimited. Here, he states this chapter as eligibility for devotion. To help the reader avoid or rise above impure faith and to recognize it in others, this chapter further discusses the underlying principles of the complex subject of the semblance of faith, Shraddha Bhas. So why even study a reflective or shadowy faith? Because first of all, one can recognize it in themselves and then recognize it in others. And if we do it with a healthy mentality, then we can advance. Then if we have someone that we can confide in, about shortcomings or weaknesses, whatever it might be, then we can help each other advance. There's a saying that if there's misery and we or commiserate, it lessens, it decreases. And if there's joy and we celebrate, then it increases. That this is a basic transaction that can help one advance on devotion. And that's mentioned in the Upadeshamrita also about love and exchanges confidentially. So brief summary. Sutta Goswami states about as far as one can realize the supreme absolute truth of Krishna, just as a bird may fly as high as they can in the sky, to that degree one can describe Krishna, the Supreme Person. And then understanding his impersonal or glaring effulgence, his all-pervading feature, Paramatma, and then his Bhagavan, or his personal feature, full of 6 opulences, complete. Swarat, independent, and Abhigyat, fully cognizant, that personality. Understanding semblances of faith, that which is reflective and that which is shadowy, helps one to recognize it in oneself and others in a healthy way, and it can help one to further advance also. And if one is having this preliminary faith, then Krishna from within destroys with knowledge ignorance. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Any questions, comments, and friendly challenges, welcome. And anyone's online also can. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu.
So you said it's Ado Shraddha. Shraddha is what we get in the beginning, but in those stages we don't yet have full knowledge of everything else. We are still impure, have our impurities, and our judgment is clouded by our previous conditionings.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever faith we build at that time, it's likely based on an improper foundation. How do we trust in that faith? Because whatever we are trying to aim for, or whoever we believe or choose to take shelter of, might be based on a loose foundation.
Yeah, great question. Prabhupada especially said that we should hear in the association of devotees, specifically those who are pure, because their potency of what they speak, vachaha, it churns the heart differently as opposed to someone like me that's just trying to practice. That their words actually have a lasting impression on the individual's heart. So if that preliminary faith, Prabhupada states in another purport, it brings them to the assembly of devotees. And then if the devotees are really sweet and kind and treat them as if they were themselves, then they start to build faith. Then they'll start to hear a little bit also. And just as a natural byproduct, they'll start to learn that they're not their body, they're a spirit soul, and then their faith will get rectified in due course of time, so long they choose to continue. But if it's intermittent, then of course their faith will not grow in a proper way. They'll resort back to whatever their preliminary faith is. And Krishna states that also in the Bhagavad Gita, essentially those who worship the demigods worship him indirectly or without real knowledge. But he said he still gives them faith. He still fixes up their faith. And say, why would you do that? Because he understands that eventually they go to the demigods and demigods will tell them to go to Krishna in due course. So even though that's not right, they think many Shivites think that way too, that he's the topmost. But he's also chanting Rama. So they, to their capacity at that specific moment, one can understand. And even if it's not properly directed, if they somehow or other get into the association of devotees, then it will be rectified in due course of time, so long they're participating regularly in whatever the program might be. For example, Chuck, Chuck and Stan, they were Buddhists, him and his partner. They stated this a couple weeks ago. But they somehow or other got in touch with His Grace Vaisheshika Maharaj, and now what are they doing? Bhakti community facilitators, calling him Guru Dev, and engaging in his drama rehearsal, serving in different. Chug for the first time cooked and brought prasadam to a gathering. So where is that happening? They believe in Buddha. But now what do they believe in? Krishna. This is practical. By satsanga. Yes.
I had a question about one of the points that you mentioned. I'm not able to recollect. If anybody else says something, I can go.
Yes.
Can you explain how one's like attachment to a lower realization can prevent them from having a higher realization? Like we were speaking about people with a Christian faith, obviously they've realized God to some extent. They at least aren't my bodies. They know that God is personal, an individual, but they're not God. They've got something figured out. But because of how the doctrine is promoted in the last couple hundred years, it's become like heavily twisted to where it's Jesus Christ is the only way. Instead of Jesus Christ is a pure devotee, he is a bona fide way. So now it's like this hang up kind of creates like this block where like if you even did show them some like cool scriptural evidence or something that they would normally appreciate from the Bible, they like force it away. Like reject it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's common also. If we analyze and this is from a scholarly perspective, Bible and Lord Christ's life, they only agree on two things because there's so many scholars that study the Bible from an academic point of view. They only agree on 2 points: his baptism and his crucifixion.
Like
historically, yeah. And of course, we're not taking into the element of spirituality, right? Because it transcends. But the idea is that there's a lot of ambiguity in the Bible, and just Lord Christ's life, he's from his conception, so to say, to 12, it's recorded, and then 12 to 30 is missing 18 years, completely undocumented, and that's where some people say he went to India and so forth. No one has real proof. And then from 30 to 33 is his ministry. Then he leaves. Okay, so if we're engaging in a conversation with someone and we're trying to give them some knowledge that's going to increase their faith, generally that doesn't happen. Usually they'll take offense, and for TLN, tender loving neglect, as Maharaj says, or we can offer them prasadam. Prasadam will act a little bit, but generally they'll stay there. And another aspect of that particular person or group that's following the Bible is that because the lack of proper context of what's stated in the Bible. For example, it says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except for me, or I am. Most people don't even understand that Lord Christ's mother tongue was Aramaic, and the Old Testament was recorded in Hebrew, and the New Testament in Greek. So many things they're very shallow understanding of. But if you want to make that effort and try to help them, you really have to judge in the moment where they're at, if they're open-minded or not. What Prabhupada said, be open-minded and be serious. They're very serious, but generally they're not open-minded. So the better it's to leave them alone. That you can decide.
Thank you. Because I always was a little confused why, there's that famous statement where some devotee asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, is it better to be like a Mayavadi or some demigod worship or something like that in like the Vedic tradition, or be a Christian? Christians are monotheistic, they're trying to develop a relationship to God, to surrender to God, go back and join God, but they're outside of the Vedic paradigm.
Yeah.
But those in the Vedic paradigm, Mayavadis, or demigod worshippers, they don't have that attitude. And Prabhupada's response wasn't the Christians are better. It's philosophically, it's more like a line. He said it's better to be like a demigod worshipper and be in the Vedic system than to be a Christian.
Okay.
Which was like, I always like, it kind of made sense. It did make sense. But now, like, I don't know, this kind of puts it together that, like, just looking at the Christian doctrine, it kind of prevents you. Like, you're not allowed to exit. You're not allowed to look at other traditions and things and, like, see how God has brought his mercy throughout the world. Whereas, people, although Mayavad is also extremely contaminating and can, like, really contaminate the consciousness, still people who are like the Vedic conception can make a transition, because they're already hearing about Krishna and all this, and it's just Krishna being like a concept or like a goal to Krishna being an actual person.
Yeah.
So like it may be a little easier for them. Maybe that's why Prabhupada would say something like that.
Yeah. First time I heard it. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, he actually said that. It's like mind-boggling. And the devotees were bewildered too. Like, better to be like in that situation than a Christian.
Yeah. Thank you, bro. Thank you. Anyone else? It's 3 o'clock. Atara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Ādināth Krishna Prabhu ki jai.